Welcome to the Talk and Chatter experience powered by Gasoline Alley Harley Davidson. My guest today is sports therapist Kirsty Mccall. Kirsty has a background in psychology and representative history playing rugby union. Kirsty's business, Scout Co, based on the south side of Brisbane, specialises in athletes reaching their ultimate human potential. I hope you all enjoy listening to Kirsty as much as I enjoyed the chat. Welcome, Kirsty Mccall.
Thank you for having me.
Truly appreciate it, and thanks for obviously reached out to you earlier this year. We've been locked down and opened up and that a few times since, but cheers for coming in.
Yeah, it's good to finally get in.
Who is Kirsty Mccall?
See, I knew you were going to ask me this because I watch your show and I've been thinking about what my answer would be to that.
You're going to overcomplicate it?
Probably, because I guess I'm lots of different things to lots of different people, but let's focus on the sport therapist side of me. So I'm trained as a remedial massage therapist and also sports trainer, and specialise in elite and semi-elite athletes, getting them back to basically working through rehab and making sure that they're injury-free, prehab, rehab, and making sure that they're at the top of their game.
Where and why did that all start?
Well, I was an athlete myself. I've played Rugby Union from when I was 10 at various representative levels, and at one point I had to give up, and I think that was my identity, was rugby union player. And then when I had to give up due to injury, there was no one really there to support me in a way that I really needed. I don't think I knew what I needed at the time, but when your entire identity revolves around a sport, and you can no longer do that sport, it takes its toll. So I think I just wanted to be the person that I needed back then. So I mentioned before I do remedial massage therapy. I also have a degree in psychology, and that plays a massive part in my treatments. It's a real holistic treatment. So I take into account the whole body, and that includes the mental side of things as well.
That's a very complex part of the world to be dealing in, and it obviously psychology is endless. And then obviously on the sports side of things, same deal. It's an endless game that you're constantly learning in, I guess, Sam.
It is complex, but on the other side of it, it also makes sense. Why would you treat one half of a person when an athlete's out playing their sport? They don't leave that mental side at home. It's on the field with them, and it can either help or hinder them. So it makes sense to understand and nurture that side of the athlete as well as the physical health.
Makes sense. Identity. Like that's such a common thing for athletes. Obviously, you look at any magazine that talks about when a rugby league player or whatever sport doesn't continue in their sport, it's very hard to retire from. How do you change that perspective?
I think if you can try and encourage people to look beyond just their sport and what they bring, there's so much more than just their sport, and there's so many transferable skills and qualities and values within the sport. And if you have to retire, I was hit hard, I'll be honest, but then I started working as a sports trainer. So I started off just as first aid, and then I realised that I loved being part of the culture of being part of a team again. Okay, I wasn't playing, but I was still in the sheds. I was strapping people. I was doing first aid. I was doing the socials afterwards, and just being part of the club culture again. There's so many different parts that you can play. Some people go into coaching, some people go into commentating, elite athletes, and just being part of the sport. You don't necessarily have to be competing, but that's easy enough to say, but if you're, I guess, resilient enough. So it's building the resiliency in athletes to know that there's so much more than just their sport.
Yeah, to build that it's like another character. Because when you're playing a sport, it's probably like a character's being portrayed at some point, different away from your home life and things like that. And then the next character of your evolution is probably the next thing that comes through, I guess.
That's it. And I think understanding that it is a character, it's a persona, and it's not all of you. So don't let it consume you. And I've worked with plenty of athletes to know that there might be one person on the field or in the ring and someone else at home.
Different story. Now, not going to name any names, but rugby league had a fair hit the other day with a party happening at a house, and some players have been suspended and fired.
Sure did.
Now, one in particular has had an issue, right? Been fired from his club. He's coming to the end of his probably time anyway of career. His identity is wrapped around being a football player, and all of a sudden you have a sudden basically loss of job. everyone in the sport is thinking, why did this happen? Like, why did you have this party, for instance? How do you give someone, not hope, but how do you give someone their next phase of life? Because we probably won't get a job in media for now. There's a lot of negative press around that particular person at the moment. How do you give someone hope as a psychologist and someone into sport?
That's a really interesting question. I had no idea that would be the nature of this.
I'm so sorry.
Love it. No, I love it. I like that people are actually asking these questions and even considering the psyche of someone who's being portrayed as a baddie.
That's the trouble,
I guess. And that is really interesting. And I think the only way forward is for said individual to practice some humility and eat some humble pie and think very carefully about how they want to portray themselves going forward. And I think a lot of people are quite quick and happy to forgive when remorse is shown. So I think if the person was to come forward and sort of portray themselves as remorseful and I don't know, it's a really difficult question, but next steps, I guess, have to be chosen very wisely. But yeah, for now it is very heated. So.
Oh yeah. And the sporting world, like you sort of touched on as well, it's a really forgiving world. Rugby league, like as an example, the amount of things that have happened, next thing the person's the front page hero, which is great. Like that's, you can redeem yourself. But this one at the current time is a difficult situation. And, it's a mistake, but I really feel sorry for, there's photos of the house that the party was at. It's probably an expensive house. Now his wage has been cut. He's been ragged out by everyone in the press. Bad mistake, but at the same time, it is a mistake.
100%. And that's a difficult one because it's not a malicious mistake, but however.
It's a big mistake, especially in the current time. Everyone's warned, and inside the hubs, there's obviously training about what you can and can't do and everything like that. So, not making excuses. I just feel like, wow, that it's a mistake. You know?
It does raise some questions about systemic issues in sport, though, in that athletes and people surrounding sport, professional sport, they get paid very, very well, may think that they're above the rules.
Yes.
So player education, the culture, as you say, it's a very forgiving world. It's almost, which can be very, very good, but it can also be bad because people forgive terrible things because their favourite player will score a couple of tries at the weekend.
True.
So it can be quite bigoted, I think. So yes, forgiving, but there is definitely a systemic issue within the players that they need to know how to behave and they need to know how to act. And I know we talk about role models and whether they want it to be or not, but tough luck, you are a role model. Yeah. The second you decide to be a professional athlete, you're a role model and you have to act like that.
Yeah, and you're on TV for at least 80 minutes a week where kids, families, whatever are watching. So, yeah, you are that role model and it's someone that people do see as a leader and, in all sides of the sport. And, yeah, it's just a real tough one. But, it's just something I wanted to ask you about how in that situation, because no doubt, and you'd hope the club is providing, I'm sure they would be, services externally because it's a big kick, lose your job, get harassed by the media and basically everything in the space of a few days.
That's it, and you touched on that there, the media as well.
For sure.
The media's got the power to make or break you, and that's a whole other conversation, I should think. But, media are very tough on our athletes, especially our NRL players, and I think they forget that our players are human. Definitely. Not just athletes, and to post pictures of their house or their private life, you can report in a story without, completely tearing them apart. So just shows every facet of their life. Like we get a really good insight into their, like the good side of the media is you watch the coverage, you get the start of state of origin. You have like a great insight to a couple of the key players each time, and same with every game. But you get a good insight into their life. But you don't need to see you don't ever see their house, for instance, at the front of it. Like you make out everything. You don't need it. No, but you always see the bad things.
You do.
And you don't see the amazing things that the footy players do. They go down to the park or they go down to local clubs and they do all this amazing work with young athletes or charity work or Indigenous communities, and you don't really see that.
Yeah.
The media choose to
show
focus on the bad.
We're bashing this here now, but what sells the papers or what sells the digital ads. Sadly it's the things that get conversation going, and it's not the positive things. You can put out all the positive things, and someone, even on the podcast, you put out something that's just a little bit edgy. It'll have comments coming through, or I'll get messages and stuff like that. But usually the things that I put out that are happy or something, it's minimal engagement.
Yeah.
That's on my small little
Needs to
world.
be controversial.
You have to be.
Yeah.
Which is weird. And that's not the space I want to like go into, you know. But
Yeah.
interesting. Why rugby for you? Originally.
Interesting, because I grew up in Scotland, and it's quite a big rugby community now, but growing up, everyone I knew in my entire family were football, so soccer. My big brother was a football player, and from the age of 2 or 3, I would go down and do the little football sessions. And then we moved to England, the southwest of England, Devon, when I was about 10. So I was in the last year of primary school, and we were playing British Bulldog in the playground. I think you call it Bull Rush here.
Yeah.
And I was playing, and I was such a tomboy, and I was taking out the boys, and I was taking them down to the ground, tackling them, and one of the boys just comes up at the end of break and said, you should come play for our rugby team. I was like, all right. And my mom's such a tomboy as well. She's like, okay, cool. I know nothing about rugby, but let's go. And I absolutely loved it. Turns out, although I wasn't very fast, I was very good at tackling. Just had no fear. And I played 3 seasons, 2-3 seasons with the boys team in mixed. There was a couple of us. And then it got to an age where you were no longer allowed to play mixed.
Mm-hmm.
And I actually got selected for the county representative team, but they said you need to have a club to be able to play. So I was like, okay, we'll just make one. So my mum and I made a junior girls rugby club at Tavistock, my hometown, and I believe it's still going. I'm not sure, but we had it at one point an under 13s, under 15s, and under 18s team. I played there until I went to uni. I just love it.
You made a club.
Yeah, well, we had a club. We made a girls section.
Girls section of the club.
Yeah,
that's unreal.
Yeah, at my club, I want to play for Tavistock. That's who I am. And so we made a girls team, and we got some really great coaches in. My mum was the manager, and my brother ended up coaching at one point. My little sister played.
So they came from football and came across.
My brother's one of those really annoying people that can play any sport, so he played both at the same time.
Can balance really well, can do this. Play an instrument.
But, no, that's the one thing he can't do that I can do.
That's good. Because some of those people, you look at them and you go, are you serious? You can do all that?
Yeah.
So, and you think,
But I definitely think I pulled my mum over to rugby rather than football. She loves it.
How was the competition at that time over there?
Where we were in the southwest, I think rugby's really big.
Mm-hmm.
So there was actually quite a bit of competition. I mean, we didn't have the leagues weren't as competitive. We sort of just the first few years we just have 3 teams show up and we just divide into 2, just so we can play and get some game time. But the standard grew so quickly. We had a really good setup for girls and women. Well, especially girls, not so much women. So women's is getting there now, but under 15, under 18 girls. So we had people playing Devon County, then Southwest England. I represented Scotland, and a couple of my teammates represented England under 20s. So there was a lot of opportunity from a young age.
That's cool.
Yeah.
That's really cool. Do you keep, like, obviously with the sport you're in now, do you keep in focus the Rugby League Women's competition? Do you watch that? Or
I love Women's Rugby League.
great,
I don't know if you caught the Origin game the other week. How entertaining was that?
It's unreal. It's proper
It is
football.
unreal. I mean, how much is so I started watching Women's Rugby League pretty much as soon as I got here. I was never into rugby league growing up in the UK. It's pretty much non-existent unless you live in that tiny pocket of England. Yeah, so it's getting there now maybe, but still it's just around that sort of Hull, St Helens area. The rest of the country is like, what's rugby league? I'd never even watched it until I met my partner who's Aussie.
That's crazy.
And I watched State of Origin for the first time, I think, in 2010. And then I was just hooked. But yeah, once I moved over here and started watching the Women's Rugby League, I would always support women's sport, obviously, being a female athlete myself. But the standard when I first got here was, like, okay, we need to start somewhere. But do you see what happens when you just give a little bit of money, a little bit of exposure, a little bit of better facilities, and
some good coaching, everything.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And in the space of sort of the 6-7 years I've been here, the standard is just, the trajectory is insane. And that standard of game the other week in the Women's Origin was just incredible.
And you're getting all the good commentators are saying, and 100% agree. It's better football than the men's football. Like, the hits are better. The actual gameplay is... It reminds me of football a few years, like rugby league a few years ago. Just the way the game's been played. It's really cool. It's really exciting to watch.
I've got a theory behind that, and
what is it?
Being that a lot of these women didn't play as a child. A lot of them took it up as teenagers or even in their 20s, and so they play the way they've been coached. They're coachable, and they play textbook-style rugby league, or same in union, textbook style. So they tackle exactly the way you're supposed to do, the way you're coached to, rather than, I think a lot of the men, because they've been playing for so long, they just sort of like, I don't know, wing it.
It's like a nature thing.
Yeah.
It's second nature, you know?
Yeah, so it's just a bit more, the men have that talent and ability and experience, and the women, yes, a little bit more technical because they're following exactly what they've been coached to do.
Yep.
So I think that's why, and back in the day, why you said it reminds you of the old school footy, because that was exactly what happened. So maybe the woman will go that way as well. But at the moment, it's very interesting and very entertaining.
Yeah. And the hits are massive.
They are.
Like some of the hits, you're like, oh, I'd hate to be hit that hard.
Yeah, tell me. But I played one season of league here. I assumed I'd be good because I was good at union.
Yeah.
I was so terrible, but I loved my one season. I just wanted to have the experience of doing it.
So why were you terrible? What was it?
God, I thought that sport... I didn't realise how different the sports were.
Okay.
Watching it on TV, my instinct as a prop was just to follow the ball.
Yep.
And then I've got Ali Brigginshaw going, get back to the centre. So I was like, but the ball's over there. I want to be over there. And... so that for one, and two, obviously 6 years after I retired, I was a little bit heavier, a little bit slower.
Things speed up.
My brain... so in union... I knew the game inside out.
Yeah.
I was a player, I was a coach, I was a referee, I was a spectator. I knew the game inside out. I had a rugby brain. Yeah. Although my body might not be quick enough to hit that line, I could see it, and I was captain of all my clubs, and I knew the sport inside out. And then I came to rugby league and I was a little bit vulnerable because I didn't grow up with it. I don't have a rugby league brain. I don't fully understand the plays and the calls and remembering, okay, we're going to do a double up. I'm like, oh, which one's that again? It was like remembering, you're like trying to memorize all the different plays. I was really bad. I mean, the one thing that I retained was my ability to tackle. So I was still a reliable defender. So I'll stand by that. But the first touch of the ball, I was playing for Ipswich Brothers against Tweedheads. And I don't know if you know the Sims brothers, Ruan Sims, and there's a younger one, CJ Sims, and she was playing. And my first touch of the ball was a hit up against CJ Sims, and God, she put me on my ass. And I mean, I got straight up again, and then the second touch of the ball, straight again. And actually, what Ali said to me as soon as she gave me the ball was, "Run at anyone except her." And I was sort of started to run towards the middle, and she was just following me. I was like, "Oh, I might as well just take this head on," and I took the hit up. And it was really cool because as I got up, it was a friendly game. I know it's just a trial match at the beginning of the season, and I remember her saying to me, "Good hit, sis," and I was like, "Oh, okay." I wasn't doing too bad then, but she did hit me. She's like an Amazonian princess. Like, she is big.
Yeah.
She smashed me.
The whole family, hey. They got like a gene that's just like concrete.
That's it. So, they're insane, but really cool girl.
Cool. And from what I see externally, they seem like a cool family too.
Yeah.
Like they're all
it certainly
all
looks
into
that
it.
way. Yeah.
That's unreal.
Yeah.
So do you know, like when players, doesn't matter what the sport, they talk about losing half a stride? Is that like what you felt for that part? Like in those years, you just lost, not speed, but you could see it, but you'd lost a stride.
It was really hard for me, hey. I mean, one of the reasons I wanted to do it is because I'm really competitive, and I was like, I don't want to get to a point where I can't do it anymore. I want to be able to say that I've done it, I've tried it, and whatever. But also, I missed being part of a team. I was really starting to feel a bit down. My mental health wasn't great. And I said to myself, when was I happiest? When I was part of a team. I'm going to go and just play a season. And I think it was hard because I remember what I used to be like. I used to train 6 days a week. I used to play sometimes 3 times a week. I was fit. I might have been big, but I was fit. And I was good at what I did. And I'd get up and I'd just do it again the next day. And I would go to training when I was playing for Brothers. And I'd get up the next day and I'd be sore. I'd have an ice bath after training. We hadn't even done contact. And I just remember thinking, when did I get old?
How did this change?
Exactly. I was like, when did I get old? And then and I was on the bench and I might get 10 minutes. I was like, I'm not used to being on the bench. I'm always in the starting team. I'm always the captain, You
represent like Scotland,
Yeah, so really my ego took a hit.
Yep.
I like to think I don't have much of an ego, but I think I discovered something about myself then where I was like, I don't like this. I mean, it was pretty good. One week I didn't get selected for the team, and my coach said, oh, you can drop down and play for like our sister club, Red Bank. And I was like, yeah, okay, it'd be good to get some match experience. So that was good because I bossed it and I played the whole game. I was unfit, but I smashed it, and I was one of the sort of star players on the day. But that's just the difference between Div 1 and Div 3. You know, it's crazy different. The level at the moment in women's sport is getting there. But we just haven't quite got that depth yet that we need. But yeah, I think I lost more than half a stride. I think, yeah. Oh my gosh, I think I lost half a kilometre. It wasn't. Yeah, it was bad. But I'm glad I did it. I made some new friends and kind of immersed myself in women's rugby league again, which is nice.
So how have you found, obviously coming from Rugby Union, how have you found your home here? Because you're pretty engulfed in rugby league now.
I am. As I said, I never even watched it until 2010, and that was like sort of Darren Lockyer, Sammy Thaiday, JT, and I fell in love with that team, especially Sammy Thaiday. He's my favourite. I just remember I said to Simon, I was like, who's that guy's flicking his hair back? He goes, oh, that's favourite for life. And then when I moved here in 2014,
yep.
And my husband joined the local team at Springwood. And I mean, he came home from training one night and he's like, hey, we need a first aid person and the club's willing to pay for it. Do you want to do it? I was like, yeah, okay, fine. Like, I'm going to be there every weekend anyway, so I might as well help out. Yep. I did my level 1 sports trainer course, the blue shirts on the field. And I did that for a season, and then I was like, actually, I really like this, like the strapping and the player first aid. And it's a bit more than that. I hate it when people call me a first aid officer. I'm not a first aid officer. I'm a sports trainer. And the reason I say that is because it's more like player welfare management. You're sort of the go-to for anything to do with their mental and physical well-being. So I did my level 2, which is the orange shirt, and I've been an orange shirt for 5 years now. And Springwood was great because the coach there happened to be selected to be the coach for Samoa Queensland Rugby League, and he said he wanted to bring his own staff with him. So he brought me into Samoa Queensland, and I've been part of them for years. In fact, I'm on the committee now. I have been for 2-3 years, and that's been amazing. That's taken me to amazing places. I've been to Samoa twice. Been up to Cairns to the World Cup. We played the curtain raiser before the Samoa-Scotland game, which was a draw, by the way. And then from then I've gone to work in women's as well, but I'm definitely engulfed in rugby league now to the point where if I watch a union game, I'm like, oh, that's right. Yeah, you've got these rucks and mauls and real scrums.
Yeah, an actual scrum. Yeah. Just scrap it.
Just play the ball.
Just get on with it, eh?
I remember the first few times I watched rugby league and I was like, why are they even bothering to have a scrum? That's ridiculous.
Yeah.
It's just a lean on.
Like, really, just scrap it.
Yeah, true.
So, like, it's got to a point now, like, it's very rarely there's a contest or against decision, isn't there? Like, it's just a waste of time. But at the current time, when they've sped the game up so much, it does give an opportunity to probably pull back a bit of pace.
Funny you should say that. I was having this conversation with somebody yesterday that I think the game has evolved too quickly for the players.
You've got all my notes written down.
It's so true, though. Like, they keep trying to make it more entertaining, more faster, and all these things. It's like, well, there's human beings playing this at the end of the day, and there's so many more injuries than there used to be, and there's so many more head highs and ACLs, and it's ridiculous. What's
the other one? Osmosis? What's that? Is it osmosis? What's the one with the toes and that people keep having? It's a name like osmosis.
I don't know. There's a lot of syndesmosis injuries. The ankle,
ankles, for feet and stuff.
Yeah. So it's just ridiculous the amount of injuries that there are these days. And even I was talking to someone the other day that just this season, the amount of games that have been ridiculously one-sided or really high scoring, and I'm like, do you ever remember a time like this in rugby league?
Even last year. Last year wasn't like this.
No.
And you look at, early in the season, you look at the first sort of 5 or 6 games, the injury ward was huge. Like, I'm like, this isn't right. Like,
yeah, we did pre-season, didn't we? And then suddenly they turned it off, and then they're like, okay, we're playing again now.
We're on, yeah. And then you look at the Roosters, they're decimated, and a lot of the injuries are, obviously they have a terrible time with concussions out of the Roosters, but a lot of the injuries are shoulders, knees, ankles, things that you're thinking, is it
hamstrings.
too fast?
Yeah.
So
The players, I think, are being... There's too much expected of them.
yep. And you look at the yard runnage per game, and AFL people look at it and go, "Oh, you're only running whatever the amount of Ks is compared," but it's like you're not getting hit and then up and down like you are in rugby league.
I mean, I don't know an awful lot about AFL, but the few games I've watched, I think there's a reason why most of the players are very, very young. I don't think it's a game that you can play for very long.
Tear your body apart, eh?
Yeah.
Like you're running, I think it's something like 16 Ks average a game or something.
And all the shoulder charges and...
Yeah.
Oh, it's ridiculous.
Hard on your body.
Yeah.
But what do you think would be, like, if you're in the top seat of rugby league, the commission, what would your thing be as a health perspective for the sport currently?
I think they're getting too strict on the interchange.
Okay.
I don't think there's any need for it. I think we can still have a very entertaining game if I was in charge, it'd be unlimited interchange.
Yeah, back to what it was.
Exactly, and I don't think there's a reason why we can't have that, unless you're trying to make it really strategic or whatever. But I think the health and welfare of the players need to be put first. Too much is expected of them, and people will play on through injury because there's no one else left to go on. Or I just think, and recovery as well. I'm not mentioning any names, but I used to have a client who played for an NRL club. And at one point I asked him, I said, "Oh, surely you've got massage therapists or remedial therapists at the club?" And he said, "Not really, hey." He's like, "Occasionally we'll get students, but they're not very good. And they just get starstruck and don't listen to us. Like, we've got one physio that'll sort of come speak to us if we've got an injury." But I'm like, "So in terms of recovery, like, what have they got?" "Oh, we kind of got to do our own recovery." And I was like, "Are you serious? NRL club, you got to do your own recovery."
You think you walk under that banner and you're just looked after.
Yeah.
That's what you hope.
And they also don't have, so I said, "Oh, do you have a sports psychologist or something like that?" "Oh, we've got a counsellor that we can speak to." I was like, "That's not what I mean. I don't mean, that's great that they've got a counsellor if it's, and that's a focus on mental health. It's great. But psychology is way much more than mental health. And I think we as a society have a focus on wait till you hit rock bottom with mental health and then do something about it. But really, psychology is preventative mental health, because mental health is actually a good thing. Poor mental health is a bad thing. I don't know, certainly in my experience of mental health, people don't want to hear about it until you've hit rock bottom and you need help. And they say, "Why didn't you say anything?"
Just bang your head against the wall.
Yeah. So that's sort of definitely inspired my work, is like, well, why should we wait until we're not well? Surely, if this is us at homeostasis and this is poor mental health and this is good mental health, surely we should be working towards this constantly, rather than waiting till we fall into that before trying to build back up again. It's far more, normalize going to see a psychologist, normalize meditation, normalize gratitude. And all these things have been scientifically proven, not hippie. I'm not a hippie. Well, maybe I'm a little bit at heart, but I'm a scientific hippie.
Yep.
All these things have been shown to biologically or physiologically improve your mental well-being. So why aren't we normalizing that from a young age? And that's certainly what I'm trying to do with, I say my kids, that some of the kids I work with at age 14 to 18, elite athletes, if we can try and sort of instill in them the importance of their mental health as part of being an athlete and being a human, then they can be more resilient going forward. And I call that my champion mindset, which is motivation, resilience, and gratitude. So if you can sort of understand what motivates you, and we all know that the intrinsic motivation is far more effective than extrinsic motivation, so something that you really care about as opposed to money and trophies. So if you can find out your why, so what motivates you and what keeps you going, and you can control that. And so under motivation and arousal, you might be one of those people that needs to rile yourself up for a game.
Yeah.
And that might be the person that listens to heavy metal music or drill rap music before you go out. Or you might be someone that's already at the other end of the spectrum and you need to sort of like calm down a little bit, and they might be the people that listen to classical music or laid back polyjams or whatever it is. If you can harness your motivation, you'll get the best out of your game. And then resilience and gratitude as well. That just kind of goes without saying, that, gratitude practices have shown to regulate your dopamine and serotonin levels, which are your feel-good hormones, and then Hebb's law tells us that neurons that fire together wire together. So the more you sort of do these things, the more your brain is comfortable finding that neural circuit, and you'll look for it, and you'll just become stronger and happier and more content who you are, which will then make you more resilient.
Wow. There's a lot in that, which is good because some of these things, like a lot of these things I've read through your blogs and stuff as well. So intrigued to dig further. Gratitude. Tell me about gratitude.
So,
why is it important?
Oh my gosh, the amount of people that think gratitude is just for hippies, it's okay. My degree is in, I've got a Bachelor of Science, so this is definitely physiological. The studies have shown that consciously practicing gratitude can increase your well-being. So how you choose to do that is up to you. It might be that you like to write a letter. You don't have to send it to anyone, but consciously, write a letter. Or I know with a lot of sports teams, I've sort of encouraged the coaches to say at the start of the session, what are you grateful for today? Or even what went well? And that could just be people thanking each other for, your play in that area was, whatever it is, just not always focusing on the negative. So you focus on the positives, you give gratitude for it, and then you'll start to notice that. And then the subsequent sort of good feelings that come from it being increased dopamine and serotonin levels and decreased cortisol, which is your stress hormone, and adrenaline. And we talk about the central nervous system a lot in our classes. So you'll have heard of the fight or flight response, being the triggering the sympathetic nervous system. So basically, if we stressed, so something's triggered us, our heart rate increases and we go into this sort of, and breathing shallows, and they'll go into this stress response, and that's when people sort of start to develop poor mental health or depression or anxiety, is when we're stuck in that fight or flight mode for too long. It's great from an evolutionary point of view. It's designed to help us survive. So if a tiger was to walk in the room now, it's probably good that our body jumps into action and gets us ready to fight it or run away. But once the tigers are gone and we're safe, if we don't start to regulate our emotions and regulate our body and trigger the parasympathetic response, which is the rest and digest as opposed to the fight or flight, then our body just burns out and our minds burn out, and that's when we start to break down. So we need to get better at triggering that parasympathetic response, which is our recovery. So it's not just if you have an injury, but you have to, I guess, just chill out sometimes and
just relax.
Yeah, and gratitude is one of those tools that you can use to do that. Mindfulness and meditation and mindful breathing and things like that, they're all part of that toolkit. But I feel like gratitude is the easiest one to implement. You're lying in bed at night, okay, what am I thankful for? And I always do it, and I think I do it on my stories a lot on Instagram as well. It's like, I'm grateful for you, I'm grateful for this. And it's nice to receive thanks and it's nice to give thanks, so it's a bit of a win-win.
And I guess that's the other part too, like you're saying that if you're putting it out there, somebody else is going to be putting it back out there as well. And then it sounds a bit hippie, like you sort of say as well, but if everyone's doing the same thing, we're in a better place straight away.
100%.
Yeah.
And I have noticed some of my players starting to do it as well. Like,
really?
I'll say to them, it's a little bit awkward at first if they don't come from a family or from a background that does that. But I'll say, I'm really grateful for you and what you've done for me. And be specific, when you did this for me, it made me feel like this.
So it actually means something too.
Exactly. And then I've noticed, for example, if someone comes in and I treat them, I cuddle them and go, I appreciate you. And like, it's a bit of a joke, but it's not, you know, and I go, yeah, I know you do. I appreciate you too. And, but it's just nice. It's a feel good sort of thing. And
definitely going to help. Like it has to, if everyone's doing if everyone's leaving on a positive note of something, generally it's going to work. Hey?
Yeah. Well, that's the idea.
Education, when you were playing rugby, there would have been none of this, eh?
No.
So how did you, obviously you studied, you did your Bachelor of Science. How did you pick it all up? Why was it meaningful at the start?
I think I've always been quite a self-reflective, insightful person. So although I might lack in a few areas, emotional intelligence I definitely make up for. So I've always been really intrigued by how I feel. I'm like, how do I feel? What would I call that? What does that mean?
So you've always been intrigued with that?
Yeah. Which is kind of, I was a bit of a black sheep to the rest of my family, I guess, in that they weren't as emotional as me, as sensitive as me. But I guess I turned that into a strength when I went to uni. Well, I guess I studied psychology at high school, and that's when I was like, oh yeah, I get this. And I really, always been really empathetic, and we'd be learning about these different things. I was like, I get this, I understand this, I can see how that would better someone's life, or I don't know, maybe I'm just just a bit of a hippie at heart and very nice, and I just want everyone to feel good all the time. But and then I went on to study psychology at the University of Stirling in Scotland, and while I was playing sport, and I guess just every time we'd have a case study or something, I'd relate it back to my own experiences. Yep. And I thought, wow, wouldn't this be amazing if we actually taught this to athletes and they knew how to better look after themselves, empowered them, rather than, a lot of the time people will try and corner the market and say, all right, you've got to come see me for this. Well, and I'm possibly doing myself out of a bit of work by trying to empower people to do it for themselves. But I just feel like if everyone's a bit more resilient, they'll make better choices and I guess just be more content in their lives.
Do you see many other people around like you that do this, like the physical side plus the mental side? It's
getting there now.
It is?
It is. Not, yeah. I mean, I like to think I'm one of a kind, of course, but I think people are starting to understand mental health, especially in elite sport, but it's not just the elite athletes that need that. I think if you ask people why they work out or why they play sport, you'll get a lot of different answers, but most of the answers you'll be able to sort of pull back to mental health, or I want to feel better at myself, or I want to have the confidence, I want to have, so it is beginning to get there, but I would say most massage therapists will just focus on the physical body and not actually take into account, maybe your shoulders are tight because you're really stressed at work and you're sitting like this the whole time. Yeah. Or maybe you're getting that pain in your chest because you're feeling anxious about something that's coming up. And it's not always the case. Sometimes it could just be the posture or whatever. Yeah. But I just don't think it should be overlooked. I always say, you take your whole self to work. You take your whole self to the gym. You can't leave your mental state at home. And so everything that, my blog's all about mind-body connectedness and understanding yourself and, why do I feel that way? And I guess figuring it out. And a lot of the time they are linked. Yeah. And I think it's important not to overlook it.
Have you figured yourself out?
I don't think you'll ever truly figure yourself out. And,
that's what I think.
Yeah. I think I have a very strong sense of mind-body connectedness, and I'm really good at looking inward. But then again, it's really easy to get caught up in the day-to-day and get too busy and forget to do your mindfulness practice. And then you think, why am I feeling like this? Oh, it's because I've been going 100 miles an hour for the last week. I just need to chill out. Yep. But I think what I do have is the know-how to chill out. Whereas some people go, I need to do something, but they don't know how to do it. Whereas you get a couple of quick tools. Like, for example, square breathing is one that I use.
4-4?
4-4, yeah. I use all the time at work. If I'm having a stressful day at work, I just stop, breathe in for 4, hold for 4, breathe out for 4, hold for 4. So you draw a square with your breath, do that 4 times. And I know it sounds silly, but just getting that oxygen and resetting, and you're like, okay, I can handle this. Because sometimes your shoulders go up, your breathing shallows, your heart rate goes up, and you just need to reset and go, all right, bite-sized pieces, one thing at a time.
That's something that's so accessible and easy to do. And personal practice, it just works.
Yeah.
It really does. Tell me about, I go mountain biking, right? So if I meditate, okay, I struggle because my mind is always active. Like I won't even say I meditate because I try, right? And probably don't. But if I go mountain biking and you exert energy and then you try something, you do like a breathing exercise, why is that the most beneficial? Like, to me, I come out of that feeling the best that I can ever feel. Why would that be, do you think? So you exert energy, then do like a breathing technique, and then after that, it's like I'm the freshest person ever. Why would that be?
In my opinion, and I'm sure there's others that would have others, but for me, it's because you were in flow. And when I talk about in flow, it's when you're doing something that you really love and you genuinely enjoy. So you're in a good place anyway. Yeah. And then so you've put yourself in that good place, and then you do your breathing. Yeah. So it's going to take you to a pretty euphoric place in your mind, and that's going to make you feel good. So I think the answer to that is not because you're exerting yourself, it's because you're doing something that you love and something that makes you feel good, and that's going to look different to everyone else. Yep. I mean, it could be that, I love working because I'm working in an area that I genuinely am passionate about and I love, and you can see me so I've got 2 jobs. I also work as a project manager, and you can tell if I'm not particularly interested in a topic or if it's to do with well-being. Yep. The difference in my action, well, not even actions, but I guess the way I look to the outside person.
The resting.
That's it. So when I'm in flow and I'm just, it's almost unconscious. I'm just going through it because I love it so much. I know what I'm doing. I'm passionate about it.
Yep.
And that's a feel-good thing for me. And not everyone is into meditation. Some people don't like to. Some people feel awkward just sitting still. But my go-to, I guess it's a little trick, a little thing for your toolkit, is if you don't know what to do and you don't want to listen to a guided meditation, just do a body scan. And that helps for, I'll explain in a sec, that sort of helps for physical benefits as well. You just basically imagine that you're scanning your whole body from the top of your head all the way down to your feet. Just move slowly, and just as sort of like the scan goes down, you just release any tension that you have, because a lot of the time we're holding tension we don't even realize. Yeah. I did a story a couple of weeks ago and I was like, okay, 1, put your shoulders down, 2, release your jaw. And the amount of people that replied said, how did you know, you witch?
It's bad.
Yeah.
It's so bad. You're sitting here talking about things. I'm sitting here, my shoulders are like this, right? It's just how I sit, and it's because I'm a really tense person. Right? Yeah. So I'm sitting here, I'm like, you're talking about this stuff, and I'm locked up. Jaws tight, and it's exactly what you say in your thing. So it makes sense.
So this would benefit you as well, that maybe after you've had a guest come in and you've just got 10 minutes to reset, just do a body scan. All right, am I holding tension in my jaw? Release it. Yeah. Am I holding tension in my neck and shoulders? Release it. And a lot of the time you don't even realize what you're doing. You're like, oh, hang on a second. Yeah, that's cool. I feel better now. And that could be a really quick exercise, which will give physical and mental benefits, because you're like, okay, yeah, I'm more relaxed now physically and mentally.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
Tell me about mindfulness.
So the body scan is a mindfulness technique.
Yep.
But just mindfulness is staying present in the moment. So there's lots of different types of meditation. Some will try and like whisk you away somewhere in your mind, and I don't really subscribe to that. I subscribe to being mindful, being I guess focused on where you are in the present, and that'll help you with so many different aspects of your life. It could be focus. So if you're mindful on what you're doing, you're less likely to make mistakes. You're less likely to have a car accident. It can help you lose weight. They talk about mindful eating rather than just eating at your computer if you're working at a desk and just eating your lunch. Actually, if you just go and sit outside and actually savor what you're eating, one, it'd be a far nicer lunch experience.
You should appreciate it.
Exactly. Yep. And 2, you're less likely to overeat. So it's just, but mindfulness is also used to treat things like depression and anxiety, because it's a bit of grounding. So there's a little exercise you can use, which is you name 5 things that you can see, 4 things that you can hear, 3 things that you can smell, 2 things that you can touch. And that's just grounding. So it's just bringing you back to where you are, because sometimes I think we can get swept away in the busy day to day. And again, all these sort of things are associated with your dopamine, your serotonin, and a reduction in cortisol levels, which is your stress hormone and adrenaline. Yeah.
Have you done hypnotherapy before?
I haven't, but I'd be interested.
Yeah, I'd be interested to see what your perspective. I have.
Oh, have you?
Yeah.
Tell me about your experience.
I don't know if it works, but it may work. Okay. And I think this is sort of like a lot of things. So for me, I went in and I've done a couple of different experiences now, but I went into someone that was like highly, highly recommended in Brisbane. And I just had a situation coming up that I was probably doing everything I possibly could to look to avoid, but it was going to be beneficial to do. It was travel involved, work travel involved. And I thought, I might try this, because in the past it was never an issue. So I went in and did hypnosis, and I ended up doing the thing that I needed to do. After a few sessions, I ended up doing the travel, did the work. It was great. It was really good. I think it was beneficial. Was it? Maybe not. But it gives you technique. Same sort of deal. It gave me techniques to feel like not everything's okay, but everything, this is the way the path should be. I think that was the big thing. And it was very basic. Not that I didn't remember it, but it was very, very basic. It wasn't hard. It wasn't difficult. But for me, I definitely think it worked.
Okay, cool.
It's weird. Really strange. No, I'd never done something like, same sort of what you're saying about. It's a bit hippie. Yeah. Thought it was a bit, but at the same time, I'll do it again if I needed to. I definitely wouldn't shy away from it.
And that's the thing. I think if people are more open to different experiences, especially with their mental health, because I think people are very quick to be like, I guess obviously there's still a stigma and taboo around per mental health, but if we're getting there now, if people are more open to trying different things, you'll think we'll find that something that will work for you. And hypnotherapy, not that it's at all my expertise, I feel like it's sort of the opposite of what my focus is on, whereas hypnotherapy, I guess, is trying to get into your subconscious and explore that, which is very important, that, sort of linked to psychotherapy. But as an athlete, I'm trying to increase a person's control and power and resilience, which on a very conscious level. So it's getting people to face things head on. And it's very hard, and it sometimes takes a long time and a lot of practice. And progress is not linear. Sometimes it goes like this, up and down. And I guess it's the first step is always learn who you are.
Yep.
And go from there. And when I say learn who you are, that's like what makes you happy, what makes you sad, what are your strengths, what are your weaknesses, what are your core values? Because happiness comes from when you're everything that's happening inwardly, so everything you deem important, everything that's important to you, your core values, and things that you enjoy, actually matches what you're putting out there externally. So actually matches your behaviors, your actions, what you're doing for work, your spoken word. If that's all in harmony and you're being authentically yourself, that's when you're happiest. And that's when you're resilient, because you know you're 100% you and you're not going to get caught out. And there's no conflict between the you that you have to be on the outside,
your message,
and inside. And I know that's something I've been preaching for a little while, and I had to eat a bit of humble pie. I went to a conference recently, and it was, because I also work in healthcare, and it was a multicultural forum. And someone said, it's hard to be your authentic self when you come from a different culture or a different background, and there's certain things that are expected of you, and they may not marry up with how you feel on the inside. So
it's a tough statement.
Yeah. So this is my current sort of dilemma, because I've always 100% been passionate about being your authentic self and pushing it out there. I'm like, well, that's great being, a middle-class white girl in a Western country. But it's really forced me to see it from other people's perspectives, from different cultural backgrounds. And I've been speaking with different friends from different countries and cultures, and trying to get a different perspective on it, because this is really challenging for me.
So how do you change your perspective? Because that's your core belief.
Yes.
So how do you change it?
It is my core belief, but my other core beliefs is also being empathetic and putting yourself in other people's shoes. So I think being open-minded and learning about other cultures and other people will only ultimately help my business, and I guess help me grow as a person. And if you understand people from where they're coming from, and not just from my perspective and my background, which is very vanilla compared to a lot of people, it is challenging, and I think we'll begin to evolve as second and third generations. But then why should we? Because it's a different culture. Just because this is our beliefs doesn't mean it's the only belief. So I don't know. It's just, I guess, maybe looking for alternative ways to be content and strong mentally that might not necessarily align with what works for me.
Yeah, that's really interesting. And what I do appreciate, and what I try and preach as well, I don't have a rigid opinion. I have common beliefs in things, and what I feel is correct. But at the same time, I really try not to be just shut, if that makes sense. Like if someone does have a different, it's different culture. Like no matter what it is, like if even go back to like the things I do, cars and bikes and stuff, everyone has like a different culture within their cultures. Somebody said to me something about even just a vehicle thing. A lot of people, especially traditionally in the past, would just shut it down. Oh, you're a wanker, whatever. But you've got to try and, I think, keep your, and this is just putting it back to something that I'm very familiar with. You've got to keep it open, because if you don't have if everything's just closed off, you're never going to grow.
And like if everyone had that point of view, I think the world would be a much better place. Not being closed off, being open to other people's beliefs, to and understanding to where they're coming from and their reasons for their beliefs, and their culture and their background. And I think if we just sort of said, oh, why is that? And then there was a justification for it, you go, okay, yeah, sure. It doesn't mean you have to follow it. But if you can understand where someone else is coming from, the world would be a much better place.
At least have the conversation, like open it up. Tell me about your time with Samoa with Rugby League. You obviously got to go to Samoa.
I did.
As well. Tell me Tell me about that.
Oh,
That'd be special.
I love being part of Samoa Queensland,
Yep.
RLSQ. As I say, I started off as a level 1 sports trainer back in 2015, I think was my first year with them. And that was the year we went to Samoa for the first time.
Wow.
Went on tour with them. We did a few days in Savaii out in the island, which was basically a hut on the beach. It was like paradise.
Wow.
and then a couple of days in the city as well. Yeah, just incredible. They've kind of become my adopted family. I guess, I don't have any family here. It's my husband's family, and
So you came over, no other family at all?
no.
Wow.
Yeah. Well, at the time, I thought it's world's a small place. If I want to go home, I'll just hop on a plane. But
How
look
things change.
Yeah, right? but no. Like, no regrets. I love living here, and the lifestyle here is amazing. But I guess coming from Scotland, where we do have a lot of rich traditions and heritage and
Yep.
culture, and then coming to Australia, where unless you're Indigenous, there isn't an awful lot of culture, heritage, and I don't know, it's hard to pinpoint what it was, but just I loved being engulfed in the Samoan culture and them involving me in the different ceremonies and the different, wearing their traditional dress and going to these Fia nights and even seeing the Civetau and all these different war dances. I just love it. I love engulfing myself in their culture, and they're just such open, beautiful, lovely people, and they're still my closest friends now. But the tour over there was incredible. We played the Samoa residents, and but really what I remember from that tour was just sort of taking in the culture and meeting the locals, and they have nothing but they give everything. It's a third world country, but they're so proud of their sport. They love their sport over there that they'd come around and they'd give us the coconuts and bananas and a pig, and we'd have a feast, and they're just such beautiful people. I loved it.
Would have been awesome, and obviously to continue your involvement to now, that's pretty special.
Well, then from then, so just being sort of a humble sports trainer with Samoa Queensland, I was then I've been selected to be on the coaching staff for the national teams as well. So I was part of the staff for the Commonwealth Games rugby league. So I was with Samoa for that as well. That was held in Redcliffe. So it was like the Legacy Games, I think we called it, and believe we got a bronze medal. So that was really cool. I got to work with some of the greats like Frank Pritchard and things like that as well. And then from there, I also got selected to be the head trainer for the Whetu Samoa, that's the women's team, and the Toa Samoa South Pacific Cup squad. So we went to Apia, Samoa again 2 years ago. It was around about this time 2 years ago. That was another incredible experience, getting them ready for the South Pacific Games campaign.
That's unreal.
I've had some incredible experiences, and a couple of years ago the World Cup went up to Cairns, and we got to meet Josh Papali and all these people. It was just insane.
Their strength has grown, hey? Like as in competition strength. Very, very strong rugby league team. It's pretty good, eh?
There's a little bit of controversy around the
coaching. There is.
we might not touch that because I've got a lot.
Nah, please don't. But there is actually.
Yes, but as you say, and I think it's great that there's so many players like Brian To'o and Jerome Lewis who actually want to play for their team and their culture, and they say things like it hits different when you play for your own country, and I love that. I'm here for it, and I hope that more Pacific players will start to do that and grow the game in their own countries.
I think so, and I see it coming into a really golden time because our competition is so, it's so spread now, it's so wide of all the different cultures that are in it, and the best players are from the Pacific nations.
There's so many incredible Polynesian athletes in the NRL, and can you imagine if they actually play for their own?
It'd be huge.
Yeah. Incredible, and then there'd be more competition, which
Definitely.
is good.
We need more competition, and that coaching thing. I'm like, probably not even going to bring that up. That's really interesting, and it's like everything. There's multiple sides to every story. Not every story, but every idea, I guess.
Yeah,
leave that there.
Let's.
Psychology. Did you think coming from obviously where you came from to where it is now, do you think it's changed much in sport?
I think people are beginning to really value it now.
Okay.
I think it's always been there, and the UK have actually been really good at capitalising on sports psychology for quite a long time. Australia seemed to be trailing behind a little bit.
Good on you, Australia.
Yeah. But, I mean, not just in sport, in the workplace as well. Like, I specialise in behavioural economics in my project management role. And even
What's
then,
that?
so basically behavioural economics is, or behavioural insights is sort of the psychology of decision making, and it's used a lot in marketing. So what nudges can you put in place? I don't know if you've heard of nudge theory, nudge someone in the right direction to make a decision by how you offer them the option. So it's at a point of decision. So if something's framed in a certain way, so for example, 90% fat-free sounds a lot better than 10% fat.
Yeah.
So all these, so it's how you frame something, how you deliver a message. Someone's more likely to actually do something if the messenger is someone that they respect or a person of authority. So it's all the psychology of decision making and getting people to embed whatever ways of working you want.
Oh, that's tricky.
Yeah. So people are starting to use it. And as I say, the UK have been using it for years, especially in policy making and government. And Australia are a little bit behind, especially Queensland. In fact, New South Wales are starting to get there. They've got a behavioural insights unit now.
We only just got power up here.
It's a bit like that. Hey,
Yeah.
The internet here is terrible. I couldn't believe that when I moved here. I was like, is this a first world country or what?
I know, like some of the things it's a great place, but yeah, you just shake your head sometimes.
But in terms of psychology in sport, I think people are starting to get there.
Yeah.
It's not quite there in Queensland yet, but as I say, people are starting to see the value in it. And it's STEM, I guess, how do you leverage off what people really care about to get them to think about it? And if you look, I guess it's a bit of a down moment, but you have to look at the suicide rates in our communities, especially in our Polynesian and Indigenous communities. Young athletes who, they've got all this ahead of them and they feel that the only way, they have no way out and the only way to go forward is to take their own lives. And, is that a cultural thing? Probably. Is there something more we can do about it? Definitely. And I think people are starting to have those conversations. There's some amazing organisations and amazing ambassadors within sport that are starting to say, check on your mates, and the Living charity, and they do heaps of stuff, 8 weeks to speak, and people are starting to say it. But I guess if people would actually fully understand it, and rather than just saying, "Are you okay?" is actually following it up with what to say if people say no, empowering, or I guess educating themselves on what they can say. And I think that's where I see the leverage being, because people are starting to care about, not starting to care about that, people are starting to talk about it. So if you can say, all right, well, can you imagine if you didn't need to do that because we're going to go the other way and we're going to work towards good mental health rather than just prevent bad mental health.
Yep.
Does that make sense?
It makes perfect sense. Like it really does. Like it's, like don't get to dire straits before you have to really talk to somebody or whatever it may be. With all that, do you see sometimes, actually, like Living, one of their things, they do like conversation workshops, don't they?
They've also got a very good blog.
Do they?
Yes.
So they do like the workshop where you can, how to have a conversation to somebody. That's correct.
I haven't heard that one, but they do a lot of
Yep.
work. So I think that's a good starting point for anyone that wants to learn more about having those conversations and what to say. Definitely.
Tough conversations in those sorts of situations.
And it's uncomfortable, but just because something is uncomfortable doesn't mean we don't do it.
Yeah.
It probably means that we have to have those conversations more
For sure.
and get it out in the open and then move forward from there.
Do you see brands, or probably companies, people, are disingenuous with it?
Oh, 100%, because it's fashionable at the moment, isn't it?
Correct. Yeah.
So,
which is, I know that's a thing. It's a real weird thing to say, but sometimes you see it and you're like, "That's so disingenuous." You don't care, and you think, "What? Not why? I can see why they're doing it, but." If someone genuinely cares, it's a different story. Hey?
100%. But look, some brands and companies, if they're putting out T-shirts that say, like have slogans on it or whatever, it might be disingenuous to them, but the person wearing it might,
It might benefit.
Exactly,
Yeah.
or the person seeing someone wearing it.
Yeah.
So, yeah, you just got to sometimes look at the positives.
Yeah, filter through the nonsense and
Yeah.
look at the positive side of it.
Yeah.
Dealing with injuries. How do you get people to cope for dealing through injuries? And yourself, you've obviously had injuries. How do you deal with injuries?
So this is the hard one, because I think depending on what sport you're from and depending on what your background is, a lot of the time you're told just to harden up and deal with it.
Yep.
And I've seen so many young athletes throw away a very promising potential career because they haven't dealt with what could have been a really minor injury. I think they've played on with a hamstring strain and they've torn it, and then, things like that, or they haven't done their rehab for an ACL and they just end up doing that knee every single game. And so education at the first instance, but and I guess a lot of people, it's hard because when you ask that question, I think of so many different clients in my head.
Like scenarios.
Because everyone's different. Some people, it's just, no, it should be all right. It'll be fine. I don't need to do it. It's such an Aussie expression. She'll be right. It's like, but will she though? Or are you going to continue playing on her and then you'll make it worse? Yeah. But then there's some people who are almost hypochondriacs, and you're like, come on, mate, you'll be fine. Just do your exercises. Just use pain as your indicator, and then you got everyone in the middle, and you've got very varying levels of health literacy. I think sometimes when you yourself understand a lot, you forget that a lot of people don't. And some people might panic, or some people might undersell their injuries. So I guess it's, for me in particular, it's knowing your clients and knowing your players, and knowing that, okay, that person's a bit of a sook. That person will not tell me if they're injured. So you've got to look for different things and ask the questions, and just, I guess, probe for the answers that you need, and just say, no, it's all good. Like, it might not be as bad as you think. We just need to go through the processes, and just to make sure that, we're only in run 6. You got the rest of the season to go. Would you rather miss one game or, the rest of the season, and things like that. So that's how I deal with it. But people take it differently. Some people are really switched on and they're strong and they're resilient, and they say, that's all right. I'll sit out for the next 3 weeks. I'll do my rehab. I'll come back stronger, or they'll have goals in mind. And I find generally women are better at that. They're a lot more stronger mentally. I had a client last night who I haven't seen for a year, and she had a baby 4 months ago, and she's back playing sport now, full contact union. And I said, so what's your goal? She was like, NRLW next year. Whereas, and I was like, hell yeah, like let's do it.
Yeah.
But with some of my men, I feel like their heads go down really quickly, and they think, oh, I'm never going to play again. I'm too old for this. And I hate it when they say I'm too old for this. I'm like, bro, you're 26. Like, shut up.
Yeah, I hate that. Yeah.
So, and also you look at some of the people still playing in the NRL who are in their late 30s now. Age is just a number. If you look after your body, you can play as long as you want.
Yep.
So, yeah, I guess it's hard. I'm not really giving a straight answer because everyone's different, and I'm like that. It's a case-by-case basis, and I do have really close relationships with all my clients because everyone's individual, and you need to know individually what works for them and what makes them tick, and how do you speak to this person over this person, because some people need a cuddle and some people need to get told to harden them up.
Yeah, just get happening.
Yeah.
Is there a psychological reason why males and females are different in that regard?
Oh, are we going to go down that route?
Yeah. But is there something like that you have learned? Like, obviously there's things like chemical levels and within brains and that you can have different responses to. But is there a reason why?
100% there's going to be biological factors. But in my opinion, a lot of it is social learning theory or social factors that we've kind of become conditioned to believe since a young age. And I think the women generally, and I'm probably going to get backlash for this, have more to overcome than men, especially in the sports that I work in, because they're male-dominated sports. And so the female athletes in rugby union, rugby league and boxing, powerlifting and bodybuilding, they're my main sports.
There's some hardcore sports.
Yeah, exactly. They're my main sports, and I've got male and female athletes in all of them. Women have to work twice as hard to get half the recognition. So I think they're sort of maybe used to the adversity and having to work rather than sailing on talent, which is what a lot of my male, obviously that's generalizing a lot, and I've got a lot of male athletes who have gone through a lot and
Work really hard and all.
yeah, and maybe come from disadvantaged backgrounds and they've had to work to get over that. But generally, as a statement, women are used to having to overcome a lot more, especially if they want to have a job and they want to have a family and they want to play elite sport.
It's like literally it was an open question to, I wasn't sure like if there was an answer, but I think that provides.
Oh, look, that's my
something.
opinion, but I'm a
Yeah.
raging feminist, so.
At least you've said it. Justice Hooney, heavyweight champion. What would you say to him in his not current state, but fantastic boxer, up and coming boxer, has a dream that has sort of been taken away for the current time? What would you say as a psychologist?
That's really interesting. It's a really interesting question. Just quickly, I'm not a psychologist, I'm a mindset coach, so I've got a degree in psychology, but I haven't done all the extra schooling to get that title. But for Justice, I really feel for him because I can see how hard he works and how long he's worked for. But this is what I was talking about earlier with identity. He's been this golden child protege for so long, the end goal being the Olympics and you're going to be the first this, the first that, and blah, blah, blah. And there's so much pressure put on him for this.
Yep.
So I don't know him personally, but I hate to think that maybe what the backlash of this would be. It's not just pulling out of a fight, it's pulling out of a dream or a goal that everyone else has had for him for so long. And I think what I would like to say to him would be to remember who you are, what you bring in, and the value that you have outside of the Olympics. The Olympics is not your life, and you will be a star. You are a star at such a young age. I actually saw his professional debut. I was there in October, and I just remember being like, wow, this kid is going places, and he just brings so much more to the table than a gold medal. I think we do this to ourselves. We put so much pressure on for a certain goal, and if we don't get that, we're a failure.
Makes zero sense, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Is he somebody like when you were there, from TV and watching him train and watching him on the fights, has like a bit of an aura even at his young age? Was it like that when you seen him? Like he just sort of has something. I don't know. There's something really special about him.
Like a champion, sort of.
You can just see it.
Yeah.
He's only really young and everything, but you just see it already. You're like, wow, that he carries something different.
100%. And I think one of the things that makes me think that is that he's so humble. He doesn't really subscribe to the trash talk that kind of comes with his sport. I mean, some people in his team might do so, but I remember the first time I heard him speak was after he won his professional debut and he won the heavyweight title. And I can't remember the exact question the commentator asked him, but it was quite, leading to let him talk trash about his opponent. And he said, he was basically asked, how easy was that? And he went, hey, look, we got the W. That's what matters. That's what we came for. And I was like, yeah, he's cool.
Yeah.
He's humble in victory. He's not downplaying it. He's just, he doesn't feel the need to put someone else down because he's done well.
Just great.
Yeah.
Like that's so nice to see, especially in a sport that has so much, the emotion that they must run through prior and post, to be able to speak so consciously.
Yeah.
It's pretty cool.
And I understand that trash talk is part of boxing, it's part of the culture, but I think respect should sort of supersede that, and he has respect, and for that he has my respect. I've literally that night I went home and I followed all his social media accounts, and I follow his journey, and I just think, he's an incredible athlete and he's going places, and
For sure.
if he doesn't, due to whatever reason, there's more to him than just being a boxer, and
For sure.
and I think he just needs to remember that he's well loved.
For sure. And I think that's good advice because, it would feel like the world's taken from him currently. I'm sure like there'd be so much emotion around, like, like any athlete that saves for the Olympic Games, there's only a small portion of your life you get the chance to do it. And to get it taken, you're like, oh no, but there's so much other stuff out there.
And it's not just for himself as well. I believe that was the dream of a lot of people around him. And a lot of people were sort of counting on him. And I don't mean that to sound negative, because I know these people have had sacrificed a lot to support his career. But I know as an athlete, a lot of the time you feel like you've let other people down.
For sure.
And not just yourself. Like maybe if it was yourself, you could get over it. But, you know, if you let other people down, it hits different.
Let's skip away from that. Dealing with 16, 20, 25 even, like year-old athletes, do you see it? Some people are living other people's dreams, and how do you deal with that?
Do you mean...
families? Like, do you see that much?
I do.
How does one cope with that?
You know, we pull kids off because they look like they're a little bit sore, and we're like, oh, we'll just rest them next week. And the players are going, the parents are coming in and going, why isn't my kid playing? Oh, he's hurt himself. Oh, you get back on there. You're not hurt. You know, and that's really hard because you're trying to promote this whole player welfare is the most important thing, player safety. And then I get it. The parents, you know, they sacrifice time and money and they want you to succeed. But if they don't come from a sporting background themselves, they maybe don't understand the toll on the body and the mind and that actually rest is just as important as training.
Yeah.
I don't know. It is hard. I know what you mean. You know, you want to live through someone.
Yes.
But that shouldn't come at the cost of the person's well-being, physically or mentally.
Definitely.
It's really controversial, I guess.
Yeah, it is. But and I'm sure you see it. You know, and there's a couple of examples of it. It's just so difficult because that is a generational thing that just doesn't seem to change either. You know, like when I was a kid, I could see, probably wasn't conscious to it, but you could see some of the kids that were playing football and that we felt like they were living someone's dream, not their own, what they even want to do. Same with motorcycling for some people as well. You know,
actually, that's true. Yeah, you know, you play it because you've always played it, because your mum and dad played it, because your big brother plays it. Yeah.
Tell me about the benefits of exercise.
Oh wow. Okay, so obviously we've got all the physiological benefits that I feel like I don't need to go into. There's, you know, people should be health literate enough to know that exercise is good for you.
Well, you'd hope.
But in terms of the psychological, the psychosocial benefits, as well as sort of the increased serotonin and dopamine and all that, actually, if we focus on sort of team sports or working out with other people, being part of belonging to a community is incredible. That support and identity and, you know, on top of all the physiological factors of exercise, I just think it's incredible from my own experience and also seeing other people. And I know myself, if I miss gym, so I like to do powerlifting, and if I miss a couple of days of gym because work's been crazy, I can feel myself like going down. I'm like, I need to go to the gym. I need, you know, my therapy. And that's what I call it all the time. I was like, yeah, gym's my therapy. I don't compete. I do it because it's for me, it's fun, and it makes me feel good. But as well as that's the reason I went back and played league that season, is because I missed the culture of being part of a club. And I've heard so many people say that. One of the boys at the club that I'm working at the moment said he came back because he missed just being around the boys, you know, and having that change of scenery, running around in the fresh air with people who have, you know, similar interests. It's therapy.
Plus that, not aggression. Aggression is probably the wrong word, but exerting something out of your body, like tackling, running. There's got to be something about that too, isn't there?
Yeah, we talk about like channeling the aggression and. You know, a lot of I know of so many kids that have gone into contact sports to basically deal with their aggression. You know, if kids get in trouble at school or whatever, or they're in this system, like get them in a boxing ring and teach them discipline. Yeah. But you can still hit someone as hard as you want just within these parameters, and it's great. You know, it really develops them as a person. It gets the, as you say, like gets the energy out in a good way. And then they get the feel-good benefits of actually being part of a club and doing something good. Something
they actually want to do.
Yeah.
Concussion, huge thing in sport. Obviously something you're very passionate about.
Yeah.
How do you change the path of concussions? Care, obviously, is a huge part.
Yeah. So concussion is, I guess it's a buzzword at the moment.
Yeah,
because
it is.
the NRL have just gone cray-cray on it. Concussion is something I've been talking about for a long time because I've suffered several myself. possibly when I suffered them, there wasn't as much known about them, certainly not at my level of sport.
Did you know about them at the time yourself?
I knew I had a concussion because the doctor told me so, but
Yeah.
I didn't really have I guess I didn't fully understand what that meant. So I didn't know what the what's the word I'm looking for? Like the connotations of having a concussion. I was like, oh yeah, I've hit my head a bit too hard. I feel a little sick for a few days and then I'll be all right. I didn't realize how serious it was. To the point now where I still, I've been told that, there's a good chance I'll have early onset dementia and things like that. And now that we're starting to see the longevity studies of NFL players with concussion.
CTE, yep.
Yeah. And, they're starting to have personality disorders or neurological disorders later in life, years after they've retired. It is serious, and I think people are starting to realize that now. But I'm really grateful to the NRL for bringing attention to it. But I think the way that they've done it is almost made people go the other way because they've just gone down, oh yeah, any hit over the shoulders, as a sin bin or as a sending off or whatever. Like it's just Magic Round was just a joke.
Look at Victor Adley.
Yeah.
Magic Round, he got hammered.
I know. And as I say, like, I'm really glad that they're bringing attention to it. But it needs to be delivered in a way that people understand the importance of it. Because I've got a few players that, it largely depends on the player being honest. It relies on the player being honest about their symptoms because you can't always see when someone has concussion. Okay, if they've been knocked out and then they're stumbling around the field, okay. But there's been times where I've had concussion and no one could tell. So it could just be that I had a banging headache, that my eyes were feeling sore, I was a bit dizzy, or sometimes the players just say, I don't feel right. And that's why it's so important for the trainers or whoever's looking after the team to really know their players, to know what's right and what's not right and the types of thing they would say or the types of way they would act, because it is so serious. And people think that by wearing, a head guard or whatever, it's going to stop them from getting concussion, which is that's not the case. That will do absolutely nothing because a concussion is actually the brain hitting the wall of the skull inside. So it's the movement rather than
the shock.
Yeah. So I don't know. I think there's still a long way to go in education for concussion, but we are getting there. I think the new coaches that are coming in, because for a while there, anyone could coach. It could be anyone's dad or anyone's auntie, or you just whoever puts up their hand to volunteer to coach could do it. Whereas now people are actually having to go through the different accreditation processes, and people are getting strict about that. And so we're getting people who are more informed and more educated about things like concussion, and so they will take it a bit more seriously. But until then, I'll keep advocating that if someone gets a head knock, you sit out until you're better.
Yeah. Time, because it is time. Hey, the longer time you can give between that next head knock, it's going to benefit you massively, isn't it? Because if you have 2 head knocks in a week, for instance, it's there's a bell curve, and you can see the actual rate of damage increases so much in succession weeks, sort of thing. Secondary hit. So it's scary.
Yeah, and if people realise that, they might be like, okay, maybe it's not worth it. Maybe my health and my family is a little bit more important than winning this community rugby league Div 2 game.
Yeah, that's so, yeah. But like anyone, I was going to mention it about one of the points we were talking about before is when you're doing it, you're Darren Lockyer or it doesn't matter if you're the first time you've played football, you think that you're the athlete, and that's really cool. That's how you should think, but you still got to put it in perspective sometimes.
100%, and I like that people think that way, and I think you should think that way. If you're going to play sport, you do it. You don't leave anything off.
You tell your friends that you play football or whatever it may be, soccer or whatever, don't you? Like, you want to be proud of doing it. Yeah,
whatever division, whatever sport you're playing, you play to the best of your ability. I 100% believe that. Otherwise, what's the point?
Yep.
But I'm incredibly competitive, so that's just me. But yes, I just think that regardless of what level, even if you are Darren Lockyer back in 2010 at the top of your game, regardless of what level you are, your health always comes first.
Definitely. How did you get on? How did you meet with Shannon O'Connell? How did that come about?
I love Shannon. So I met Shannon through her ex, actually. So and I think I treated her once or twice just as a random appointment, and then we sort of just really clicked, and we got along really well. And she's really open, and she's happy to share her sort of insights to sport, and I just find that so interesting.
Definitely.
That I treat her every week now, and we've become really good friends as well as having that sort of client therapist relationship. And she tells me, her thought process and how she prepares for a fight and how she feels throughout camp, whether it's positive and negative, and how she goes up and down. And I just think she's incredible. And I actually didn't know her backstory until I listened to the podcast with you. So I remember I listened to that and I texted her. I was like, what? I was like, you're incredible. Like what you've been through, what you've accomplished. And she's 38 now, and she's the fittest she's ever been. And she's beating 20-something-year-olds. And I just think, she's an incredible athlete and a real inspiration to me.
Yeah, definitely. And she's just got... her motivation is just so out of this world. She's
got champion mindset. She just wants to win over anything else. And it's so good to see. Like, you don't see it so often. Or you're getting there now, but in female athletes, you don't quite always see the same aggression as you do in male athletes. But Shannon's got it, and it's incredible.
It's so cool to, like, you've been fortunate enough to go to her fights. Yeah. I've been to her training sessions and stuff. And you just watch and you're like, wow, this is unreal. Like, it's you're watching something else, like you can go to a local sparring session and see people spar and stuff. Then you see someone like Shannon, and then she comes off and she's the nicest. I don't know. She's the coolest person.
She's cool.
And she's got a fight coming up pretty soon, hopefully, which will be pretty cool. So she's back in camp, I believe. So
she is in camp. Yeah. We went down to Bendigo in March, where she fought Shanika Johnson on the Mundine Zarafa card.
Yep.
It was the fight of the night, as I'm sure anyone that watched it would be able to tell you. It was incredible. Like, women's boxing really was put on show that night. The two of them are incredible. I believe she's in camp now, and she's ready to fight whoever she fights. She's ready for
ready
it.
to go.
She'll fight anyone, anywhere, anytime. She's like that, and she'll do it for no money. She just as I say, she is a champion, and she loves what she does, and she's always ready to go. And she's one of those athletes who it's 100% or nothing. There's no point half-assing it. She's just she's great, and she puts everything into her camp, and she's great. Both
ways, you both must appreciate each other. You must appreciate her because what she puts in and what she gets out. But at the same time, you're educating her with some certain things as well. That must be a pretty cool feeling for you. Yeah,
like educating Shannon is no easy feat because she knows everything. But I think I like to think that she does listen to me, that she respects my, I guess, what I do and what I believe in. She's great at the physical side of things, and you'll see her roll her eyes when I tell her to do recovery, but she's slowly getting there. She did have an ice bath the other day, so I was like, good job.
There's a win.
And she comes to see me every week for remedial massage therapy, and as I went with her to Bendigo, and really I wasn't really there as her therapist, but more sort of her confidant and her companion, and I'm really grateful for that opportunity because she walked me through every step of, okay, this is what I do the day before a fight, this is what I eat, this is what happens at weigh-in, and she was talking me through the process, and it was very educational for me, trying to learn a new sport, because obviously I know rugby league, rugby union inside out now. Boxing is, I'm new to boxing last year. Once I got Shannon on board, and then I got Django, and I got a couple other sort of amateur boxers on my roster now, but I have to learn the sport. I need to know what movements and also the mental side of things. And she's really forthcoming with that information. Although it was educational for me, I like to think that was almost therapeutic for her as well, articulating how she feels, like putting into words what's possibly always just going on in her head before a game or before a match, sorry. And that was an incredible experience. And I came away from that going, I think boxing, as physical and, as fit as you have to be, is 90% mental.
For sure.
And I remember her saying to me something that stuck with me. She's like, in my head, I'm going to war. I'm going in there with someone that wants to kill me. She wants to punch me in the head. She wants to knock me out, and I have to do it first. And I was just looking, I go, wow.
Yeah, that's such a foreign term for us. Like we back away from those situations so much. It's just like, but to think that's going to happen How do you deal?
I know, right? So it's just, I guess with that, I just say every athlete's different. My relationship with every client is different because obviously I have to capitalize on their individuality rather than push what I think they should do. And Shannon is a seasoned pro. You know, she's been around a lot longer than I have, and she knows what she's doing, and she's won all these fights. So I guess it's just capitalizing on what she has, and I guess reassuring her that she's got this. You know, you've done this so many times. You know the process. Sometimes it is just a bit of reassurance. She knows it, and she knows she knows it.
Yep.
But sometimes it's just like, no, you're fine. But yeah, she's the most dedicated athlete I've ever met in my whole life.
Really?
Really.
That's cool.
And she's taught me a lot about myself because she is as successful as she is because her personality doesn't take any crap. She can be incredibly stubborn, and she doesn't, I guess, humor me a lot of the times where a lot of my athletes will. You know, if I say, make sure you do this for recovery, make sure you do meditation, she's like, I'm not doing that. You know,
just straight up.
Yeah, which is great. It's really good when you have like a straight up relationship with your clients where you know exactly where you stand, and I think that's why we're so close.
More beneficial for both parties.
100%. There's no point lying and saying,
fluff.
oh yeah, sure, I'll do that.
And just don't do it.
Yeah.
Are you, like, obviously with everything that you educate, a lot of it's about living in the moment, being in the moment. Are you a goal setter though?
Oh, absolutely.
What's your goals? Can you talk about anything?
There's some that are still sort of like, there's some that I can't talk about, but I do have big goals for Scout Co, which is my sports therapy business. At the moment, currently, it's just a small business. It is my side hustle. I'd still work full time as my sort of safety blanket, I guess. But I do have sort of an end goal to have a recovery centre and be full-time in that. What that looks like at the moment, I'm really open to. I don't like to set such, concrete goals that I can't be open-minded and flexible to what it is along the way.
Yep.
Having said that, goal visualization, is really important in that, what does success look like? What does it feel like? Who is there? What is the process to get there? And I'm very visual in that. Although it might change, one thing remains the same is that every day I'm working towards that. And I've made so many sacrifices to do that. I mean, I work 7 days a week. I went to school 3 days a week, as well as working full time, as well as training, as well as running my small business, because I just have this bigger picture goal of success. And I want to be successful, and I want to be successful in a field that I have passion in and that interests me. And I'll get there. I know I'll get there.
For sure.
I have, I'm good at what I do, and what I don't know, I'll get better at. And I've got great people around me.
You got your own champion mindset. Basically,
100%.
It's built around like your structure. And that's like when you ask me, should I prepare for anything? I'm like, nah, just come in and talk because I know you're passionate about it. I'm like, we don't need to. You'll know everything off the top of your head anyway. I'm not going to give you any armor. So has that been all right?
Absolutely. I mean, when I said to you, I was like, should I prepare anything? You said, no, you're fine. I was like, okay, well, I won't. And I absolutely 100% did not. And I thought, I'll wing it. But you're right. I know and I love my content that I'll happily talk about it to anyone until the cows come home. And actually, what's funny is that did happen recently in that I went to a professional development event recently.
No shoes?
With no shoes. I had shoes.
Okay.
You've seen the post, obviously, that I posted on my Instagram. But I went as a participant.
Yep.
And it was to the Australian Institute of Fitness where I was a student. I did my remedial course there. And the reason I wasn't wearing any shoes is because we'd just done a really good foam rolling practical session. It was incredible, actually. Anyone that doesn't know, I'll have to try and remember the name of the guy that was there. But
how can that be good? They're terrible.
No, they're so good if you know how to do it properly.
No.
Honestly, like, get on YouTube and learn how to do it properly. I've been foam rolling for 15 years, and I got more at that 20-minute session. Anyway, straight after this foam rolling session where I had no shoes on, the facilitator came up and said, "Oh, would you mind doing a presentation? Someone's let me down and they're not able to get in." I said, "Sure." I was like, "What would you like me to present on?" And,
Oh, geez.
So I went through my emails and I found one of my workshops that I'd done fairly recently on champion mindset.
Yep.
And I emailed it to him and I stood up and I talked about motivation, resilience, and gratitude and the importance of it, not just for athletes, but for therapists as well. Like, if you're working with these people, you need to know your stuff, and you also need to know yourself and look after yourself to be able to give the best version of you. You don't want to get into I guess a lot of therapists go into the business with all this passion, and then as the sort of years go on, they lose it and just go through the motions. I think if you know yourself and what makes you tick and how you can, I guess, keep your motivation alive, you're going to provide the best service, day in, day out, and you're also going to get more out of it yourself. I don't know if you've heard of the pouring cup theory, that you can't pour from an empty cup.
Yes.
And that's about self-care as well, but I think that can be done professionally as well. Like, the more you have, the more you can give. So you cannot rely on anyone else to fill your cup for you. So the way you do that is knowing your motivation, knowing your why, and then capitalizing on that, doing your professional development and speaking to people about what you believe in and going to all these events. And, I'm definitely an extrovert. I get my energy from external situations and things like this, talking about things I believe in, going to the boxing, going to the footy, talking to my athletes about things that I'm passionate about, and then all these things are refilling my cup, because then I can go back and give more to my clients. I guess look after yourself, not in a self-care way as well, obviously, but in a professional way, and then you can be the best therapist you can be.
I reckon that just about finishes up here. Tell me just really quickly, what does Scout Co do? What do you do?
So I call myself a sports therapist.
Yes.
So that mixes with remedial massage therapy, mindset coaching, and sports training. So basically holistic care of my athletes from mental, physical, psychosocial point of view, making sure that they're able to perform at the best of their ability at all times, and looking after people when they're not at the best of their ability.
And where can we find you online?
So you can find me at scoutco.com.au. I'm also on Instagram, so let's be friends at Kirst_scoutco.
Perfect. And for everyone that is listening, the website's got blogs on it. There's heaps of content on there. Have a read, because I think once you get in there and dissect some of it, you'll probably learn some things about your own self. I think it's a good thing. So,
like, the blogs are definitely sort of focusing on encouraging people to improve their mind-body connectedness and become a better athlete. But a lot of it is Gen Pop as well. Anyone would benefit from that, and there's even some free exercises, so you got nothing to lose and everything to gain.
And I think that's the other part too. Like, it's not just set around athletes. Like, mindset can be used for just the general population, like a lot of the tools. So check it out, and thanks for coming in.
Thank you so much.
That's all we have time for on today's show. If you get the chance, head over to YouTube and hit subscribe on the Talk and Chatter page. Also, head over to iTunes and give us a star rating and a review there. It all helps to get the podcast out there. A big thank you goes to everyone that's been doing this already, and we'll be back with another show soon.